Okay, time for our guest, Kev. Would
Yes.
you like to introduce her?
Our guest is here, Shangkari. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're super welcome. I'm Kev. This is John. Welcome to the Peterborough podcast. When we bumped into each other in that coffee shop and you were explaining a little bit about what you do, I was intrigued. Tell John, tell me, tell people listening, in a nutshell, what do you do?
So basically, I really help women find balance in their lives. So basically, on the level of their mental health, on the level of their emotional and mental wellness, that's where my work truly supports women. And most women who come to me, they're actually dealing with stuff in their lives, in their relationships particularly, where they're looking for support, but they don't find the support they need because it doesn't really speak to what they need as a woman in their relationship. So that's where I come in and support them on an emotional level to find and uncover the desires they have in their relationship, whether it's for more connection, more intimacy, or just to feel more joy in their lives, just to feel more at ease with the things that are going on in their lives, because women are so busy, right? We have to do everything. We have to be mother, parent, and also wife, and also do all the things in our work, in our businesses. So it gets a lot. It gets to be a lot.
I've got a lot of questions. I don't think whether you have, John, as well. Do you want to dive in, or do you want me to dive in? Because, I mean, as you explain that, I mean, clearly you're focusing most of your work on women and helping women with their busy lives so that they can mentally feel better, physically feel better, emotionally feel better, more connected. A lot to unpick. Where shall we start, John? You dive in.
Well, tell me how it works then. So let's say that I'm a mother who's feeling stressed about something in my life. What would be the process? Would you interview for me, find out more about what I'm thinking, what's going on, internal, external factors? How does it work?
Yeah, so basically when someone comes in, they're basically at the point where they don't feel too happy, they're a bit frustrated, but they don't know how to move forward. So what we do is really sit down and uncover what's actually going on in their lives. Where in their lives are they feeling frustrated? Where in their lives are they not feeling as happy as they could be or as they want to be? And uncover the emotional needs that they have in that phase of their life. And then we work on meeting those needs on a soul level, on their own level, before talking to other people about it, before bringing it into their relationship and communicating with their partner. What can they do for themselves to support them to feel better, to support them to just come out of that frustration and that emotional burden that they're feeling?
I made the comment about you being a life coach. I think that's not quite right, is it? It's more mindfulness coach, would you say?
Yes, to support women on a wellness level. So it's about life, but mainly I focus on relationships. So it's a lot of things because different women have different life experiences that they're going through and different needs that's coming up in that phase of their life.
And at different stages of life as well. So
Yeah.
the difference between a teenager and somebody who is menopausal or somebody who's elderly, or different things, right?
Different things happen because and it shows up in their relationships because we're all evolving as human beings, and as we grow up, different situations happen and we have different needs. Our needs change over the course of our lives. So when these needs change, most people don't realize is that's the point where they start to feel stuck and they start to feel lost in life and they don't know what the next step is, and they kind of fumble their way through. But what really needs to happen is taking a look inside, taking a look at where they desire, what's their primary desires, like what do they really want to create in their lives? How do they want their lives to look like? And then moving from that to putting in the pieces, arranging the pieces in order that could bring them to where they want to be.
Do you know, I've got a thought as we discuss this.
Makes a change.
Thank you. When someone's not well, be it physically, be it mentally, if you're a bit down on yourself, not feeling great, and I don't know, you go to the GP. The GP will take a look at you. Right, I'm going to diagnose you now, and I'm going to give you this pill or that pill to try and make you feel better. And I'm thinking to myself, it's almost like when anyone needs help in life, It's like, oh, there's a prescription, see you in 5 days or 7 days. And yet, surely, we're all individuals, aren't we? We're all utterly individual at different stages in life, the point you made. And
different diet, different
exactly,
all sorts of things.
Exactly that. And so, I don't know, as I hear you speak, Shangkari, and describe the fact that you treat each person for whatever it is that they want to talk about or have help with, and you listen fully to what they're describing and detailing about where they are right now in their lives. And you can't give a remedy to that person that's going to be exactly the same for another 100 people, because everyone's different.
Yes.
Am I making a sense with this?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, because everyone has a very unique need, because we're all unique, and we all have very specific desires. And I think when you go into a bookstore and you find like a self-help book, it's very generic. What you need is someone who can talk to you and pick out and pull out and tease out those specific unique needs you have, and help you find a way that works for you to go for it, to find your way through in life, to get it and make it happen for yourself.
So in that regard, then I was wondering if you could give us an example of somebody you've helped, not their name, you don't have to identify them, but what you've done to help them, maybe a recent client or somebody like that.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So I had a client, I think about a few months ago, who came to me with so she was struggling in her relationship and she was feeling very lost in her life. What she described was, I want to move to a different city. I want to do different things in my life, but I can't get started. I'm just stagnating. And things I try, they're just not going, they're just not moving. At the same time, I'm trying to get my husband to do those things with me, but he's not moving either. So what do I do? How do I change this? And so what happened was we worked on what was at the core of her frustration. What was she really frustrated about in life? And then we worked on those emotions, and we worked on healing those emotions and finding ways that she could do on a day-to-day basis to meet and resolve that frustration. So what could she do in her life that would make her a little bit happier today? What things that she could have or arrange about in her life that would help her, feel a little bit better. And so what happened was, the more she devoted time to herself, the more she devoted time to doing the things that brought her joy or taking steps towards her goals, the more her husband also started to shift, and he started to change and almost took steps in the same direction as her. And this came about without her even communicating those needs to her partner. So he already knew that, obviously, from her speaking to him about it in the past when nothing changed. But then the more she changed, the more it inspired her husband to change as well.
Her small steps led him on a journey to make this steps as well.
Yes.
But without her, she'd already said to him, we need to make changes here and there. But actual behavioural changes was the thing.
Yeah, so without the pressure on him, without the nagging, or without the frustration most women go through.
Nagging? You said nagging! Love it. Now, that's a really interesting example. Listen, there's so much here we could dive into. I'm interested in hearing how you ended up doing this in Peterborough, because you've not lived in Peterborough all your life?
No. I was in Durham up to 2018. And then I just moved to Peterborough in 2019.
So why did you pick Peterborough?
I picked Peterborough. I don't know. I had a friend that lived somewhere almost close by in Northampton. And then I wanted to go somewhere with friends, but I didn't want to be up north. I wanted to be closer to London. So I basically opened the map and picked a radius and
threw a dart.
Ended up in Peterborough. Okay. The flat I found the first time round was almost synchronicity. It just led me here. Right. And everything has been, it led to starting this business. It led to a lot of healing that I've done on myself as well. It led to such a shift in my own life. So it just worked out. I met all the right people. City you love though?
Peterborough's a city that you're enjoying?
Yes, I haven't left it yet.
Yeah, so you must be doing something right.
Positive.
At the beginning of this podcast today, John and I were discussing restaurants in the city centre that are opening up. We talked about the Taste of Thailand coming, a new Thai restaurant. We talked about the new Odeon Lux Cinema that's just opened. How would you assess, as a business person in Peterborough, doing the things that you've just explained, how would you assess Peterborough City Centre and what it offers people?
I feel like a lot of things in Peterborough, if you kind of find your way through it, you tend to meet the right people, and it's not a huge community. It's a rather tight-knit community. So if you're at the right place at the right time, you tend to meet the right people, and everyone's very welcoming and everyone's very warm, and you don't have that almost disconnection of London, but you do have a lot of that vibrancy that's coming in and out of the city.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear. Just going back a minute to the things you do. What you mentioned there, a husband, a man. What do men think of what you do? I mean, do we still live in a sort of patriarchal society? Can I say that? What would you say about that? Whether it's male dominated?
Yes, but things are changing at the moment. But there's still that structural sort of patriarchy. I wouldn't say it's patriarchy. It's just a system designed more for men than it is for women. So, for instance, like a 9-to-5 would suit a man more than it would suit a woman, because I don't know if you know, but a woman has an infradian rhythm. So her cycles of productivity, of energy, of work is more on a 28-day, and a man's cycle is more on a 24-hour. So he has a replenishment of energy every morning, while a woman she has 3 or 4 days of intense activity, intense vitality, and then she has a week off where it's harder for her to move, it's harder for her to work. She's more in rest and regeneration. So the current 9-to-5 system, the current 9-to-5 workday suits more of a masculine sort of person rather than a feminine person. So that's where these things sort of affect relationships, because most men and women don't understand or don't realize that it is their cycles, the deeper like physical, biological cycles, that are governing how they connect in their relationships.
So in that regard then, does that affect how productive the two sexes are? With are they different in terms of productivity without criticising one or the other? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes. So for a man, you would have like a very good productive period in the mornings, and then you sort of taper off towards the evenings. Whereas for a woman, it depends on where she is on her cycle. So if she's on her follicular or ovulatory, she's very active and very vibrant. She has a lot of energy to do a lot of things.
Shangkari, let me come in here. You've just used 2 words that John doesn't know what they mean.
Yes.
Neither do I, neither does anybody. What were those 2 things you mentioned?
So a woman has 4 phases in her cycle that takes her over the 28 days of her sort of a physical body cycle. So the first phase is the follicular, where she has she's almost coming out of her menstrual period. She is ready to ovulate, so her energy is sort of peaking.
Okay, that's the first one. What's the other one?
The second one is ovulation, where she is fully in her power. She feels very outgoing, she's extroverted, she's ready to mingle, she's ready to meet people. So this is good for a woman when she wants to arrange meetings, or when she wants to network, or when she wants to
pick that little period of time, because that's when she'll be at her peak.
Yes, and so if you want to talk to a woman or you want to ask her out, then that's the period you would do that.
Okay, so should I ask her what period, what time of
what cycle are you in at the minute?
Let's not even.
So that was 2. Did you say there were 4?
Bold gambit, but yeah.
Yes, there were 4. And then it comes to the luteal, where a woman is more in her analytical mind. That's when most couples have problems, because women tend to feel more irritated when they are more analytical. It's just that part of the brain works a lot more. And then coming after that is in their menstrual, where they feel more tired, where they feel they're not in the mood to just socialize, or they're not in the mood to do certain things. But that again picks up. Again, the cycle renews itself, and then they have the the outgoing nature that they want, the things that they want to do, they're happy to go for.
And then they start the cycle all over
Yeah.
again. See, that's the difference between men and women. There was a book I once read years and years ago. Men are from Venus,
Mars.
and women are from Venus, Sunny.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that maybe was ahead of its time way back then. But hearing you discuss this now, I mean, it all seems so incredibly complex and actually not very easy to understand. And the other point I wanted to make was, John was asking some really interesting questions about what you do, how you help people, the process of it. You gave a good example of how you have helped somebody in the past. But the thought that I'm having as I listen to all of that is, I reckon 99.9% of women who you're looking to help would have no clue that they might even have help out there for what they're desiring.
Yes.
It's like, how on earth do you find clients?
Yeah, it's very hard. But usually it very easily shows up in relationships. That's the primary place
So
where
people having issues in relationships generally can find you after
yes,
that.
because they tend to feel it the most. They feel frustrated in their relationships. They feel that it's so hard for them to communicate what they need. They feel they're not being heard, they're not being understood. Why is that happening? And a lot of it happens because either they haven't been able to communicate in the right way to their partner, or their partner hasn't been open enough to taking the time to understand them, or there's this communication barrier, there's this understanding barrier. But it all stems from how well do you know yourself. So most women don't really know that this is going on, like you said, in the background of their lives, that they're governed by these cycles, that they're governed by what their body is actually going through, rather than what they're thinking. So a lot of the times where you go to your doctor's office, and most women go through cycles of PMS and PMDD, and you tell that to your doctor, and they don't really understand, or they don't really get the severity of what's going on. So you just get a generic treatment of like pills, or do this or do that. But a woman still goes back home feeling frustrated. Like, no, this doesn't really solve my problem. I'm still stuck in this mess that I'm in, or I'm still frustrated. So how do I get out? And because they are in they're in deep communication, or they're in deep close-knit environment with their partners, that's where it really shows up. It also shows up with their children, like when they're communicating with their children. So that's how they're
just in the natural line of fire then.
Yes.
If I'm going through my issues without even hardly realizing it, without the right help for it, those people who are immediately close to me
get it.
Yeah, get it.
It's what I call it, you're in the splash zone.
The splash zone. Okay.
So they don't want to lash out at their partner, but they do. And then that creates a problem in their relationship. So this is where it happens the most. And it's the most obvious.
I was going to ask you about, I was reading some of the notes you prepared for us a little bit earlier on. You had something you wanted to mention about STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Is that correct? Like
Yeah.
a case
Just
story
before we go
about
into
that.
story, we should mention, shouldn't we, at Peterborough University,
Yeah.
they've just recently opened the Living Lab.
Yeah.
A fabulous new facility for the city and the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to throw
No,
that
it's
in.
a good plug for that,
As
isn't it?
You talk about your STEM story.
Yes.
Fire away, yeah.
Okay. So I was, before I came into doing wellness and yoga and healing, I was an academic in academia in Durham University. So I did astrophysics for, I think, 8 years of my life, and that's when I came out. But during that time, I was in the process of, I had to go to conferences, seminars, and workshops, and I was looking to actually build a career in STEM, so science, technology. So I went to a workshop where it was a career building workshop. It was just for women in STEM. And what happened was, we talked about all the things that, all the opportunities that are available, everything that was going on in the field. And then the question was open to the audience about, bring your questions to us. And because it was specifically for women, so a few women stood up, and one of the questions that was brought up was, so I'm struggling with my supervisor, my professor, or my boss. But there are periods where I feel overly emotional. So this was the question. But I felt I couldn't share it. I couldn't express that. And the answer, the response that was given by the panel at the time was, I know you understand that you feel this way, but it's better that you don't express it and you hide that.
You repress it.
Yeah, not repress it, but it's better not to show
don't say
that
it
part
then,
of
yeah.
yourself when you're in that environment, and then process it by yourself outside of that environment.
Right.
So in a way, it almost...
Don't show your emotion.
Yeah.
Don't
What?
say anything.
And there's an expert on the panel saying that.
Yeah, well, she's a senior person who's been in STEM for a long time. But what most people don't understand is when you're a woman in a field full of men, which I was, it's very difficult to find support for yourself because of this way of thinking. Men think differently and women think differently. Men process emotions differently and women process emotions differently. So when you're a minority in a space like that, it becomes very difficult to be authentic, to be vulnerable. You almost have to protect yourself in a way. So to protect yourself, it's easier not to show your emotion. It's easier to take yourself out and then try and process your emotions outside of that environment and then come back into it. But what most people don't do is that they don't really have, this was a good 10 years ago, so therapy was not as big, wellness was not as big as it is now. So in that environment, she wouldn't have had the resources or the energy to how to process what she was feeling in that environment. So that advice, while practical, was not very helpful on a deeper level for her. She may end up suppressing those emotions long term, and then it may come out later in her relationships or in other environments that, it wouldn't have been wise. So I experienced the same thing when I was in that kind of environment. So I think the way we are looking at these things needs to change. So an understanding of how a woman processes her emotions and how a man processes his emotions, just this basic understanding can lead to better communication, can lead to better working environment.
I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, we've talked quite a lot there. We've been chatting for 20 odd minutes about what you do, and I can see that on so many different levels, there's a lot of help out there. You focus most of your help from a mindfulness perspective towards women. Most of your clients are women. So if people want to find out more, where can they reach you?
So they can find me on Instagram. My name is Shangkari Balenderan, and I run a program called the Anchored Feminine. So that you can find that on Instagram.
The Anchored Feminine.
Yes.
Okay.
And they can also find me on my website, which is shangkari.com. So I spell it? Or...
You may do, yes, if you wish.
So it's SHANGKARI.com.
Great.
Shangkari, great to meet you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much
Thank
for
you
coming
so much
in.
for having me.
You're super welcome. There you go, John. That's a lot to take in there. But a Peterborough business person who is doing something utterly unique, utterly compelling, helpful and positive for so many different people potentially. And for me, it breaks my heart when I think of somebody going through tough times and never being able to get out of the hole they're in, whether they go to their GP or speak to their friends, and they're sort of going through the motions in their lives, when actually there could be help out there that is in the form of help that you wouldn't have dreamed possible.
I can help them, people with their home life, their career, their mental health, all sorts of ways forward,
and their relationship. So when you and I go through tough times with our working relationship, who are we going to call?
Ghostbusters. But after that, Shangkari
all the way. And before we finish the podcast, we are aiming to do another podcast episode before Christmas. And there's lots of different ways that anyone listening can contact us if they want to.
Peterborough Podcast. You can find us on all the various channels. So if you're trying to recommend us elsewhere, just remember Spotify, Apple, etc. We are on YouTube. This has been recorded, this episode, so we're also on YouTube as well, and TikTok. We have a lot of followers on TikTok as well. Just search for Peterborough Podcast and you should be able to find us.
Is it not the Peterborough Podcast?
No, it doesn't matter. If you
Either.
search for it, it will just come up. It will pop up beautifully on your feed.
Okay, thank you very much, John, and thank you to everyone who listened.